Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ad Project Podcast. Today I'm really excited to have Chris and Dustin from Sellozo joining us. We just got to do a live on social media not too long ago. We had a lot of really fun stuff to talk about, so I wanted to get them on the podcast so we could talk through and share, all their key learnings. So Chris, Dustin, maybe I'll kick it over to you. Can you kind of introduce us to you and give us a quick background?
Sure. I'll go ahead and start. I'm Dustin. I'm an account executive at Sellozo along with Chris. Been with Sellozo for about 2 years, and Sellozo is an ad automation platform, optimization platform. We can talk a little bit more about that if we want to. But love my role here. We also host, Chris and I host the Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone podcast, which we've had you on.
Awesome podcast, by the way.
Yeah,
check it out if you haven't heard it.
Yeah. Well, your episode in particular is awesome. I mean, you are the master. We really love talking to you about all things PPC. So it's super fun. But no, I was in a former life, I was a tennis pro. I did that for a long time. Started as a side hustle, started an Amazon business myself in 2014. It scaled to where I was able to quit my job as a tennis pro, move back to Kansas City, where I'm from and love it. And coincidentally, Sellozo is based in Kansas City. So I was actually a part of a meetup group, an Amazon seller meetup group that I actually never attended, but it was actually put on by Sellozo. And so I got to know them and then ended up deciding to work with them, work with Chris. It's been a blast. And then, of course, starting the podcast has been tons and tons of fun. So that's a brief background on me. Chris, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, my name is Chris. Just like Dustin mentioned, we both work at Sellozo as account execs. My past ventures, I used to work for an e-commerce company as a buyer. So I bought product and we sold it on Amazon. So that was my introduction to Amazon. And then I realized really quickly, like, hey, I could do this on my own. So just started doing the whole, everybody does the whole kind of retail arbitrage, wholesale stuff, and did all that. Private label was next, and found a meetup and went to it. I actually went to it and met some people and got let go of my previous job and hit up Sellozo. And Sellozo's like, yeah, we're hiring. And at the time I was kind of nervous, but, I was able to work with Amazon sellers as I'm a seller and learn from more people just like Joe, which Joe, you are amazing. So
yeah,
we're in the, we're in the space now, but now like this whole venture is like full circle. Like we started out as sellers, we listen to people's podcasts, we learn from them, and now like we're the ones sharing information with people. So it's kind of surreal.
Yeah, it's kind of fun too looking back. Like the way that I got started on Amazon as a seller, I was listening to the Amazing Seller podcast way back in the day, and started on the retail arbitrage side, and then worked up to private label and all that good stuff. And yeah, it's kind of fun to full circle. Now we're doing podcasts on it.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that is the Amazing Seller is the one. I mean, I know I talked with Chris about it. That's the one I listened to. I listened to every episode of that thing, and it really, I mean, I followed every step, and of course back then it was, those steps were easy. It was like go to Amazon and look up all the reviewers and then directly email them and send them your product and they'll just give you a review. It was a little different than it is today, but yeah, this is a fun space to be in. It's always changing. You have to stay on top of it. So both Chris and I are kind of competitive. I was being a tennis player. I was very competitive, and there is that to this game. I feel like it's a game. You're always trying to be better and better and better, and so it fits. And no day is the same. That's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So with all the competition that's going on, like one thing that Matt and I have been focusing on for those who have been following along with the podcast is just kind of like building out the foundation and getting ready for Q4. And we're going to be going through some like more details in future podcasts just on like, key implementation and how we do that. But as you guys look to coming into Q4 with all the increased competition and everything else that you're talking about, Dustin, like what would you say are some key things that you're you're really focused on, or when you're talking to sellers to be really focused on?
Well, I think the big thing, of course, everyone's different. Everyone's going to a different starting point. But going into Q4, if something's not performing well right now in your campaigns, it's going to not perform at a magnified scale during when all this traffic comes in. The same thing goes for things are performing. So it's really critical, I feel like, that you are really focused on optimizing everything right now so that you're getting the best bang for your buck. And a lot of times that's going to mean, not going after a lot of things that you might want to, a lot of targets and stuff that you might want to go after, but consolidating to where you're, where you got proven conversions, that it's going to convert well on those targets. And then you can be more aggressive during those times. I think right now it's definitely not the time later to just like throw on your research campaign, like in the middle of December. You don't want to be doing that. You want to have it optimized now so that you're ready to go for sure.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah. Chris, what are other items?
Yeah, well, I think inventory, besides this PPC, I think inventory is going to be a struggle for some people. I think we're going to see a lot of sellouts, stock outs. I was just talking to my mom, and she went to buy something from Lowe's, and it said it's not available to like December 30th. It's like, so people are already starting to see that, like it's going to be delayed for inventory. So if you're lucky enough to have inventory, this is going to sound strange, but you may not have to push as much because your competitors will probably maybe sell out, and you can kind of keep that margin for yourself. So I think you got to, especially this year, I think you got to really stay focused on, are you going to have the inventory to last the entire holiday season? And do you actually really need to push all your advertising dollars during that time? Or are you going to start to sell organically because your competition's selling out? So you got to keep your eye on that.
Sure.
That's what I'm looking at is inventory, like making sure I'm staying in stock. Another thing I'm looking for that I'm doing now is watching brain analytics more and seeing what the search behavior is looking like, making sure that I have those keywords that represent my product, that I have those in some sort of campaign so that I'm advertising on those, because we're going to start to see search behavior change as we get into the holiday season. Gifts for toddlers. You're going to see like Christmas gifts for my niece or whatever. Those things are going to start to trickle in. So making sure you kind of have your finger on the pulse there is going to be a big deal. Big deal.
Yeah.
To touch on what Chris was talking about, I was just on a webinar with Michelle Barnum-Smith from EasyBot, and we were talking about just that, those terms. And it was interesting. We're starting to talk about, like, if you do like gifts for men, so vague, so broad. I mean, it is going to get a lot of traffic potentially, but that's not what you want to be necessarily putting in your campaigns. But if it was barbecue gifts for men and you had a barbecue product or something related to that,
sure,
that could be, the more specific you were able to get, those might be things that you want to potentially incorporate in your listings and in your ad campaigns as well as this time comes. In all honesty, Joe, what's your thought process on those types of words? Because there's gray area on there. You can go broad and you can get burned, or you can be more targeted with those.
Yeah. I mean, so you guys hit just a lot of different items, and we're going to circle back to all of them too, because there's so many different pieces coming into Q4 to plan for. Dustin, for your question, like getting the gift keywords, that's huge going into the holiday shopping season. And that's one way where you don't want to just rely on, say, like auto campaigns or typical discovery campaigns to find these, because people may not have been searching for the gift keywords, or even if they did, it might not have gotten enough volume to work their way automatically down the discovery campaign funnel structure. So I think using intuition to really find, like, what are those key spots that we really want to focus on? All the gift keywords are going to be huge. And I definitely wouldn't go super broad. So gifts for men, like it's going to be, yes, there's a ton of volume, but what's your conversion rate going to be, and what's it going to cost you to get that spot? Like, that's probably not the spot to be in. So I would niche down, and I would be much more aggressive for those very long tail, like, gifts. Like, so I'm selling tennis rackets. I'm seeing some rackets behind you. So like, yep, tennis racket gifts for men or something like that. That I know I could be really aggressive on. Once I start getting broader, I'm probably going to want to test it out more first, make sure I'm getting the conversions. Because if I get too aggressive on the bid side, you could eat up a ton of budget right away before you catch it. So I don't know. That's a general approach that I take. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the testing part on something like that can be tricky because they don't start searching that stuff until as it gets closer.
Exactly.
So it's not something. That's sort of you testing it during Q4 and adjusting it as it goes.
Yeah,
sure.
But I love taking the thought process up front, like you're saying.
Right.
Like, now is the time to do that, to get that in place, versus trying to do it when everything else is going on too in the middle of Q4. And then at that point, now you just have to review what the actual results look like versus trying to come up with the ideas at the same time, and maybe you're even missing the mark or you're too late for some of the seasonality.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree.
So Chris, I mean, you brought up another great item, which is inventory. And, so we did our live on social media, and we were talking through the record number of ships that were stuck outside of the LA port. And I think it was like 50 something at that time. I just saw a new article, and it's up to like 70 something over last weekend. So kind of walk me through your thought process on stocking up for inventory, like, and how do you stay in stock? And then if you are in stock, say, and other people go out, like, are you taking advantage of that from like a pricing perspective, or how are you approaching that overall going into Q4?
Yeah. I mean, you better start thinking about your Q4 inventory like in June or July, because that's what you're going to be placing those orders then, and you got that lead time. And so, for Q4, you're probably thinking about that right after Q2, like if you, right there at that time. So for me, it's a matter of kind of forecasting what I did last quarter and maybe adding 20 or 30% to that just to kind of be safe, kind of give myself a buffer. And then I'm splitting shipments up. I would suggest maybe splitting shipments up. And what I mean by that is you can have a big Q4 order, but you can also split that up into smaller shipments within that time frame. So you place an order for Q4, and you tell your supplier, hey, let's ship half of that like the first week of September. And then let's get the other half of that shipped that first week of October. Now, I know that the lead times are going to differ. I know especially this year that they're different. But years past, you were able to do that without all these hiccups. You were able to kind of split your Q4 shipments into two orders. That way you weren't stuck with all the inventory. That might be an avenue I would test now, because when you get your inventory, you don't have to ship it all. Or if you do ship it all to Amazon, great. But if you don't ship it all to Amazon, keep some back. And we talked about this on our show. Keep some back for FBM.
Sure.
Send in your FBA, and you can kind of go back and forth there. So that's how I would do it. Next year for people is start planning for at least a June or July order date, so you can have it by the time Q4 gets here.
Sure. Yeah. And I think a key thing too, it's like the optionality, kind of what you hit on. So if you're getting a shipment sent in, like, you don't necessarily have to send it all into Amazon's inventory. I've had many instances where I'm loading up my garage just to have more optionality if other big orders come along. Like, I sell directly to colleges quite a bit with my products. And so I don't want to have to rely on Amazon to fulfill all those products. And then the other weird thing going into this too, it's like, with all the demand, is Amazon going to be able to handle it? And are we going to experience another like March or May situation when COVID hit, where they were actually preferring FBM shipments for a while?
Yeah.
And so, it's a weird circumstance going into it. This is all driven by really high demand, which is awesome. It's great for sellers. But I think, like you were touching on, having that optionality is going to be so huge, just because we honestly don't know exactly what to expect on the inventory standpoint. And if you're out of inventory, any of the other strategies that we're going to talk about don't really matter.
Yeah, you just kind of missed the boat per se, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or you're stuck on the boat.
You're stuck on the boat.
Outside of the LA port.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I'm doing. I mean, on the other side of my office over here, I've got boxes stacked to the ceiling of inventory. And there's so many things like why that's important. Because even if you time like getting your inventory shipped in, like right now, I've got stuff that was sent into FBA in LA, and it's taking. It's been in the FC transfer for fulfillment center transfer stage
Sure.
for probably like 3.5 weeks. And it's driving me insane because I keep having to like pause my campaigns that I'm running and monitor that, because as soon as the last thing I want to do is be running ads when my listing shows my shipping time as like it's be delivered
November.
in 3 or 4 weeks.
For sure.
Killing my conversion. So I'm constantly having to double check this and check this. And right now I don't have my FBM listing active, but that's what I would for sure be doing
Sure.
in this situation. But yeah, the inventory struggles are real. But like you mentioned, it's problems are usually good problems, especially when there's more demand, more things going on. If we can solve these problems, we can be the ones with the products in front of the customers.
For sure. Yeah. And Chris,
and
you had a great point too. Like, so looking at based off of where you project your inventory to be, like you were talking, like you may not want to be as aggressive on advertising at the start because you don't want to go out of stock later on. So, how would you analyze that, or how would you take a look if you're a seller? Like, how aggressive do I get from the start?
Yeah, I think it starts again looking at the inventory and seeing how much you project to sell in a 30-day period. If you sell 300 units a month and you only have 250 left, I don't know if I would be running ads. You're going to sell those organically, bring home some more profit. So I think it goes SKU by SKU. You just got to kind of know how many items do you sell, how many units do you sell of a product a month. Let's say let's pick a number, and then when you get that Q4 bump, what is your Q4 bump? If it's a new product, you don't really know what that is yet. But if it's a toy, a gift, if it's giftable, I would just imagine a pretty hefty increase, probably 30% or more, maybe.
Sure.
But if it's a standard item that no one really gives as a gift, you might not see that big of a bump. Honestly, you might not see a big jump in sales because people are buying other giftable products. So I would look at your 30-day sales velocity, see if your inventory matches up with that. If you have less inventory, maybe cut your budgets down a little bit. And that's another thing, budget balancing, or I call it budget balancing, or budget optimization, whatever you want to call it. But maybe there's some campaigns that you have bad ACOS on, and you have some good campaigns that have really good ACOS on. Well, just move your budget around, keep the ones with really low ACOS, raise those budgets up, and just decrease the one with the low ACOS, and you're still spending the same amount. You're just allowing the other campaign to perform a little bit better because it has a low ACOS.
Sure.
So all that stuff, hand in hand, maybe just watch your inventory projections. If you don't have 30 days or more, I don't know if I would run ads, honestly. I think I would kind of hold off a little bit.
Sure. And I get asked this quite a bit. So quick question for you. So if you know you're going to run out of stock, do you keep running ads going up to that, or do you throttle back?
Gosh, I used to be torn on this. I'm with Dustin now. I used to be torn on this. I used to be like, yes, always run ads, because when you come back in stock, it's going to be easier to maintain that rank. And now I'm at the feel like, no, just sell out because you're bringing home more profit. And when you get those inventory back in, now you have the inventory to push ads again. You're not going to risk of running out. So I am now switched to just sell it organically, get the profit,
and raise price.
And raise price.
Sure.
I mean, if there are options there to raise price, if you're going to run out anyway, don't run out and be out of stock for 3 months. Run out slowly and make a lot of money.
Yep.
And to touch on that, I don't think we've talked about it, raising prices. We're all three sellers, and I don't think we do it enough. We should raise our prices a quarter or 50 cents a week, see what our conversion rate is, check our impressions, see if we get the same number of clicks. If we lose impressions and we lose clicks after we raised our price 50 cents, okay, then lower it back down to 50 cents. I don't think we test price enough.
Sure. Sure. Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's our perspective too. If you're going to run out of stock, like let's cut advertising back. And Chris, I get your perspective earlier on too, because what we saw, like at least like a couple of years ago, or not even, I mean, pretty recently, once you go out of stock, like it seemed like it was once you came back in stock, it was pretty easy to get going again. And so you just kind of wanted to maintain that momentum. You'd go out of stock, but then you'd come back and then you'd just be like right up to where you left off. Where lately, what we personally been seeing is that if you go out of stock, now it's like once you come back in, it's like you almost have to relaunch that product again. And so, like Dustin, to your point, like let's try to extend the inventory that we have over a longer period of time to reduce that stock out. I feel like that's much more important now, where you really want to reduce that frequency or that time, because even if you are rocking like in terms of sales going into when you go out of stock, it seems like lately it's so much harder to get going again. And so trying to reduce that time, even if you have to slow sales velocity down, personally, that's where I'm seeing would be a much better opinion or a much better spot to be. But curious what your thoughts are.
100%. I'm living that right now. I'm relaunching a product that was at one point had a BSR of 1 on Amazon a few years ago. It was a really nice bestseller.
Nice.
Selling hundreds of units a day. And I've relaunched it. And I had gone out of stock before in the past. And whenever I relaunch it, I'm right back up there at the top of page 1. Right when even if I was out of stock for weeks or months, it would come right back in. This relaunch is very different. I'm almost all of my sales right now are coming from PPC. I'm getting almost no organic sales. But I know that there's there's the potential for this product. So I'm being aggressive with it to get it back up there. Sure. But it is something that I'm going to avoid like the plague in the future is going out of stock on this product because it's too hard to do. It's too much. It's too capital intensive to get this re-ranked again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great case study right there. And that's what we've been seeing across the board lately. I mean, we literally have to like rerun launching campaigns to get some of these products that were doing so well, like back up to where they were. And in many instances, it's tough to do that. And as we know, ranking campaigns, like they take a lot of cash to get these listings going again. They're a long-term investment into the product and the listing itself. But yeah, you don't want to do it if you don't have to.
No, that's exactly right. And that brings up actually another good strategy for leading into Q4 is figuring out where you are ranking for all of your keywords right now. I mean, you can do a reverse ASIN lookup on your products, and you can do things like limit the minimum searches to like 1,000 searches so that you're looking at basically keywords that get traffic. And then you can find out what keywords you're ranking between like 5 and 20 on, something you're really close. Like if you just gave it a little nudge, you could get into those top spots before Q4 really kicks off. Those are things that I would potentially be really aggressive with right now.
Sure.
To rank. I think it's.
And Dustin, I loved your initial point. Like, so if you look at where your campaigns are at and where your account is at, as you come into Q4, everything that you're doing right now is just going to be amplified. Mm-hmm. And so if it's not performing that well right now, like it's going to not be performing double that well. That was horribly phrased, but you get what I'm saying? you did it much better. Yeah. So what are like some key things as you're reviewing your account performance or as you're talking to different clients that you're working with? Like where would you focus your efforts right now to get your best bang for your buck?
I mean, I think a huge thing. Well, number one is I would do what I was just talking about. I analyze areas right now where we're ranking close, but like maybe we're like below the fold and like a little bit because like that's something that you could do something now where you could get positioned well so that gets amplified. I mean, we know for sure that basically the higher you're ranked, the higher your conversion rate is. I mean, especially if you're that top spot, your conversion rate is way better than if you're in the middle of the page. So you could theoretically be advertising at a higher bid and actually be more profitable at the top spot because the conversion rate's better. So I would definitely make sure I was doing that. That way we can make things that we have chances to put things where they could be amplified for Q4. We can make a little adjustment. That's good. But I do the same thing in terms of anything that's performing poorly, or we've got a lot of data on and the conversion rate's low on it, or the ACOS is high. I mean, those are things you would consider just completely pausing
Sure.
just during this time. Like, don't allocate all your money towards where they can go well. So I mean, I would take a big look at conversion rate, because conversion rate's pretty a good idea of what it's going to cost. I mean, if you're bidding $1 and your conversion rate's 5%, it's going to cost you $20 to get a sale on average.
Sure.
And that's just, it's going to magnify when it goes. So I would be doing both those things. I mean, this is a no-brainer, but if you're just running like auto campaigns or some broad research, just research campaigns where it's not filtered down to the exact match, and get all the stuff out of there that's needs to be negated, I would be doing that right now to make sure it's optimized going forward.
Yeah, I love it. Any other things that you would be looking at, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think some things I would be testing out is maybe Dustin mentioned pausing some keywords. I would probably try a different match type. If I was running an exact match on a keyword and it wasn't converting like I wanted it to convert, maybe try it in a broader phrase match and see if I can get a better conversion rate on that particular keyword, especially if it's a keyword I know that I want to go after by using brain analytics. Recently, I've been harping a lot on brain analytics because I think the data is right in front of our faces. No one really uses it. So brain analytics is something I would spend a lot of time on, different match types, but I'm focusing on sponsored product ads. Like sponsored brand are nice and sponsored display are nice, but like 80% of the sales are going to come from sponsored product. And that's where I would focus the most on and trying different match types.
Sure. I love it. So I'm switching topics a bit, but I'm curious on your perspective for this. So just over the last week, we've seen a ton of updates on Amazon's platform. So they're just rolling out like rule-based bidding. So you can actually set in a ROAS target. Currently, it's only available via the API. It just had another new update where they're giving the facelift to the ad console, but we're seeing new features and a lot more like automation kind of built into Amazon. Again, they're trying to make it as simple as for somebody to come straight in and use these features and implement them. So I'm just curious on your perspective on where you guys see the platform going in the future, and your take on some of these new features that have been rolled out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good for just the whole space. I think it's going to bring more people awareness for automation, and some people may enjoy it, some people may not. Like Amazon still got feedback options, and there's still companies that do feedback. So like, I don't think it's going to be a big thing. If anything, I think it's going to bring more awareness because the interfaces are going to be completely different. You see it, we see it. The things you can do in Campaign Manager, sometimes you can't even find. So if anything, it's going to bring more people aware of automation. They're going to test it out, and then they're going to find out ways they can do it better. They're going to look for tools. They're going to look for agencies. And I think that's where we both come in. All three of us come in.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think anytime they innovate or add things, it's always a good thing for sure. I think you still have to have that eye watching it. And, how do you optimizing for ROAS? I mean, there's different, there's always these things that you have to be doing and monitoring it. So, but I'm a big fan of them releasing more and more tools and capabilities for us to use.
Yeah.
That allows us to do better.
Yeah. It's a fun space to be in. Every day you're having to like kind of relearn everything as you go, but it's constantly evolving, which is fun. Again, like we're having all these inventory issues because demand is so high. We're seeing all this innovation in Amazon advertising because it's growing really quickly. So it's really fun space to be in. I agree. Like I'm excited to see where they keep building this out. And then, there's many people in the space who are building software on top of it. So walk us through Sellozo for people who aren't who don't know about Sellozo. Give us a quick overview there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sellozo, like I said, is an ad automation and optimization platform. It's unique in that it's AI based, but it allows for you to have the most control over whatever strategy you like to employ. So it's really good for someone who has a pretty good understanding of PPC and they know what they want to do, but they just don't want to have to do all of the busy work associated with it. And one of the biggest features inside Sellozo is what's called our Campaign Studio. And it's basically a workflow where you can build out your campaign structure and link how you want your keywords to be transferred through the campaign. So if you've got an auto campaign that you feed a broad match to, and that broad match feeds an exact match campaign, and you also have maybe a product targeting campaign, you want to feed that auto into that product targeting campaign, you can map all that out so that keyword transfer and negative keyword creation and everything happens based on the way you've set it up. And then of course every day bids are adjusted on your target ACOS, and so all that. So everything, you get keyword discovery, negative keyword creation, daily bid adjustments, and a full mapping of your exact campaign structure. So we have those options, and we're actually getting ready to release Sellozo Autopilot, which is going to be amazing. It's going to be a one-click solution for anybody who doesn't really understand ads at all. It's going to be a one-click solution to have your campaign structures launched for your product, budget balancing, everything's going to happen. We're even going to automate day parting for it, etc. So there's going to be a lot of really cool features with that Sellozo Autopilot. But yeah, Sellozo's a great platform for automating your exact strategy.
That's awesome. And I love the tie to strategy, because we talk about like ROAS optimization, and now if you can just specify that in Amazon, that's one piece, but really the bigger piece is like being able to tie that to a strategy itself. And so that's what's really cool. And I love hearing you tie it back to the strategy, because different campaigns are going to have different strategies and KPIs and goals based off of where your product's at and what you're seeing for results. Sure. So that's awesome to hear. And so for anybody who's trying to learn more about you guys or want to connect or follow your content or listen to the podcast, where should they go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could check us out on podcast. It's 2 Amazon sellers and a microphone. Sometimes it's 3 Amazon sellers and a microphone. So, yeah, that's where we're at. 2 Amazon sellers and a microphone. We're on LinkedIn. You can find us through our names. But I think the easiest spot to find us is go to Sellozo's website, SELLOZO.com, and you'll see a button that says Get Started. You're going to get a call with Dustin or one of us, and we're just going to learn your strategy. What's great about this space, and Joe, you can agree with this probably, is everybody has different strategies. Like they all do different things, and broad and phrases and top of searches and broad pages. Like there's all kinds of different stuff. So we're going to learn your strategy, and then we're going to show you exactly how Sellozo can help you with automating whatever you're doing manually. We can automate that for you.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, again, appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. It's always fun anytime we talk, and whenever we talk, we could go on for hours, but we'll wrap this one up. But Dustin, Chris, thank you guys again for joining the podcast.
Pleasure to be here. Great. Always great talking with you, Joe.
Yeah. And for everybody who's listening to the Ad Project, thanks for joining. We'll catch you on the next episode.